We're here for Harrison Bosley's distinction interview on analysis of sports performance. That's the D1 task. Harrison, I need you to fully examine each aspect of your performance profile. You're required to include sport-specific examples to support your analysis, and you also need to use research to support your answer where possible.
Right. I will be discussing a specific athlete of my choice, which will be Santi Cazorla from Arsenal Football Club. He plays in the central midfielder role, and I will explain the 5 aspects of a performance profile around him. The characteristics identified by the athlete were passing, shooting, tackling, heading and dribbling. I have chosen passing to discuss for the technical and tactical component because it is used in football to move the ball around the pitch to create scoring chances for other players on your team. You can pass the ball using different parts of your body like your head, foot and leg. You cannot use any part of your arm up to a certain point. To complete a simple short pass, the best way to do this is to use the side of your foot and strike it with a varying amount of power depending on how far away the teammate is. If you were attempting a long pass, you would have to strike the ball from the bottom half with your laces to get the ball off the floor to clear more distance and put more power into it so it goes farther. For Santi Cazorla, this is probably one of the most important parts of his game, because if he can't move the ball around the pitch, then he will just lose the ball and the opposition will take possession. An example of this possession would be if a defender tackles the opposition, but then can't get rid of the ball to the teammate through a pass, the opposition will just tackle him again and then they are through on goal and they will probably score. A quote I have found has been used by Marco Verratti, who plays for PSG. He said that an intelligent pass is just as important as a flashy dribble. This would be a good example for like Barcelona. When they get a good string of passes together, they can open up teams very easily, and they usually score or get a very good scoring chance from these passing moves. This shows that passing is vital to any team's success, and you can't just run for everyone.
Okay. Can you give me a specific example of when Cazorla's used passing effectively?
I can remember a time when there was like 2 or 3 players in front of him, and instead of trying to dribble through them, he chipped the ball over to them to Olivier Giroud, and Giroud went on and scored.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
For the physical component, I have chosen speed to discuss. The characteristics identified in this component have been speed, power, agility and strength. Speed is used in football by players to run past the opposition and get through on goal to create chances for their team. For Santi Cazorla, this isn't as important to his game as it once was, because he is getting older and is slowing down, so he hasn't got the same speed he had when he was younger. Players use this in games and it can be very important when counter-attacking. For example, if you have Mane and Salah from Liverpool running at you, this is going to be very difficult to shut them down, and if they get past the defenders, it's going to be very hard to catch up and they will probably score. The quote I have used has been said by Johan Cruyff. He said, "What is speed? The sports press often confuses speed with insight. If I start running slightly earlier than someone else, I seem faster." Speed isn't needed, but can be helpful when used correctly. The game today is heavily revolved around speed, but even big players who aren't as fast can still be very, very good. Having a lot of pace on attackers is dangerous on the counter-attack, because this means that the defence has to stand them up and think on the spot about what to do to stop them.
Okay. And can you give a specific example where perhaps Cazorla's speed's let him down?
When he makes runs into the box, if a defender is in front of him, he might not have enough pace to get past them. So if, say he's running at David Luiz maybe, David Luiz is very fast, so he would probably catch up and tackle him instead of Cazorla getting through on goal.
Okay, thank you.
For this physiological component, the characteristics identified by the athlete were heart rate and lung function. I have chosen lung function to discuss for this. Lung function is how well the lungs can transfer oxygen into the blood. The stronger your lungs, the more oxygen you can deliver and the more oxygen you get to your muscles. This will mean that you will reach your optimum performance more efficiently and for longer. This would be important for Santi Cazorla, as he needs to have a lot of oxygen delivered to his muscles so he can run well for the entire 90 minutes. This would also be important that his lung function is good, so we can get rid of the carbon dioxide so it doesn't build up and so it doesn't cause an overload of carbon dioxide in his body, as this could be dangerous for him. A quote I have found is coming from the website Style Craze. It says that every activity in the body is dependent on oxygen, including the metabolic functioning of cells. The lungs perform the task of delivering oxygen to every part of the body. This website says that by practicing a few exercises regularly, you can train your lungs to increase their capacity, which will help you inhale more oxygen and achieve your greatest goals.
Okay. Can you give an example of when, again, Cazorla's lung function has been effective?
In an important game, if he hadn't have trained his lung function over time, then he might get subbed off in the 60th or the 70th minute instead of being able to play the whole game. And this could prove vital to a team's success if he is a key player in that team.
Okay. And just reiterate for me, why would his lung function be better than mine?
He's training nearly every day to improve this, and
okay. So what about the size of his lungs? Has that got anything to do with it?
His lungs would probably be, he's quite small in height, but after all the training they probably would have.
Would they be stronger or weaker than mine?
They'd be stronger.
Okay, and if he's got stronger lungs, what does that mean he's able to do?
That also means that they can pump more oxygen into the blood in each breath.
And if he's got more oxygen being delivered to his working muscles, what does that mean?
It means that it can replace the carbon dioxide created, and more oxygen will be delivered to the muscles.
Which means you'll be able to do what in a game, you said earlier?
He'll be able to run for longer and reach his optimum performance.
Okay, yep.
For the psychological component, the characteristics identified by the athlete were confidence and motivation. Confidence is important in football because you have to be confident in your abilities, and if you go in to make a challenge as a defender, you won't want to enter the tackle half-heartedly, and you may get injured. Confidence would be important for Santi Cazorla because if he has to come up against players who are taller than them, he'll need the confidence to be able to play against them, not back off from challenging the ball. For example, where Cazorla is only 5'6", if he was coming up against Fellaini, who's 6'4", he is nearly a foot shorter than Fellaini, so he would need confidence to tackle and battle against him for the ball. Confidence in football is important, so if a striker doesn't have confidence in himself, he may miss some easy chances because he is worried about failing. If he had this confidence in shooting, he would bury all the chances he gets. Our quote that I used has come from Arsene Wenger, and he said, "If you do not believe you can do it, then you have no chance at all." This would mean that if you need confidence in yourself to perform, because if you believe in your ability, you should be able to achieve great things. When athletes feel confident, they are more readily able to turn sporting potential into their optimum performance. On the other hand, if they do feel unsure of themselves, the slightest problem or struggle in a match can have an adverse effect on their performance.
Okay, some good points there, and I like the quote from Arsene Wenger as well. Can you give a specific example of when Santi Cazorla's confidence has helped him in the game?
Some of the goals he's scored, he has had to dribble through quite a few players and finish well. So if he didn't have confidence in himself, he probably would have passed it instead of attempting this.
Okay, yeah, good example. Can you think of a team he's played who he's done that against?
I'm not sure if he scored a chance, but I think when they were playing Barcelona in the Champions League, he passed it off instead, but the chance was missed, but he still managed to take on quite a few players.
Okay, yeah, good example.
In the next component for the characteristics identified by the athlete for this component was linear displacement and velocity of release. I've chosen linear displacement to talk about, and it is how fast someone can move in a straight line. This is important for winners in football, because the faster they are, the more chance they have of getting around the defenders and being through and goal. However, for Santi Cazorla, this won't be as important because he won't be needing to run around anyone in a straight line. He will probably have to dribble around the player as he is in the middle of the pitch. This is important for football in general because players will need to make runs using their speed in a straight line to get into the box behind the defenders for crosses and through balls. This creates scoring opportunities and is a highly used tactic to score from. Some say that linear displacement isn't as important because players have to turn with the ball. This would mean that linear displacement isn't always related to as a big part of football. There is all sorts of things going on in football when running, which is you have to run forward. Sometimes you have to turn a full 180 degrees and go in reverse. You have to turn through all sorts of angles and change direction constantly. So unless you're running up the pitch to defend or catch up to the strikers to provide assistance, you're never really running in a straight line.
Okay. And can you think of an example of when Santi Cazorla's linear displacement has let him down? Not referring to David Luiz's example used earlier.
I can't remember any specific examples, but if he was going to make a run in the box and he wasn't fast enough to get behind, the cross might just go straight by him and the chance would be wasted.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Harrison.